The Dominion was old, older than most stars in the galaxy. For 12,000 years they had ruled over 1,000 worlds, and in all that time nothing had challenged them. Their cities floated above clouds on worlds they had shaped to their liking. Their ships moved faster than light itself. Their bodies did not age, did not sicken, did not die unless they chose to. They had solved every problem that could be solved. They had answered every question worth asking. They were perfect, and they knew it. Commander stood on the bridge of her ship, the Silver Dawn, and watched the stars pass by like streaks of white paint. She was young by standards, only 400 years old, but she had already grown bored with her duties. The Dominion's fleet had not fought a real battle in 3,000 years. Now they simply patrolled, watched, and waited for nothing in particular. Her mission today was simple. A primitive species in the outer spiral arm had recently discovered faster-than-light travel. This happened from time to time. Young species would stumble upon the basic secrets of the universe and think themselves special. The Dominion would send a representative to observe them, judge their potential, and decide whether to welcome them as servants or ignore them entirely. This species called themselves humans. They came from a small blue planet called Earth, had read the reports during her journey. Humans lived for less than a century. Their bodies broke down over time. They suffered from diseases, from hunger, from wars among themselves. They were, by every measure they used, completely unremarkable. The Silver Dawn dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Earth's moon, looked at the planet through her viewing screen and felt nothing. It was pretty enough, she supposed. Blue oceans, green lands, white clouds, but she had seen 1,000 worlds more beautiful. A human ship approached. It was ugly and blocky, held together by metal bolts and welded plates. Could see the heat venting from its engines, a sign of terribly wasteful energy use. She almost laughed. These creatures had only just learned to walk among the stars, and they were already stumbling. The human representative came aboard an hour later. His name was, and he was a scientist of some kind. He was old for a human, perhaps 60 years, with hair and lines carved deep into his face. He walked slowly, carefully, as if his body might betray him at any moment. Found it difficult to look at him. Watching something so close to death made her uncomfortable. "Welcome to our system," said. His voice was rough but warm. "We are honored by your visit." Nodded politely. She had done this before with other primitive species. They always started with honor and gratitude. Then came the fear, then the submission. It was the natural order of things. She showed him the wonders of technology. A device that could create food from nothing. A screen that displayed images directly into the mind. A small sphere that contained a pocket of folded space, larger on the inside than the outside. Watched each demonstration with wide eyes, but he did not fall to his knees in worship like others had done. Instead, he asked questions. How does the food synthesizer know what nutrients to create? How does the mind screen interface with biological neurons? What prevents the folded space from collapsing? Opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. She realized with a strange feeling in her chest that she did not know. She had used these devices her entire life. Everyone in the Dominion used them, but the knowledge of how they worked, the deep understanding that had created them, was lost somewhere in the ancient past. These technologies were developed long ago, she said carefully. The principles behind them are complex. Nodded slowly. There was something in his eyes that did not like, not disrespect exactly, something closer to understanding, as if he had learned something important about her that she had not meant to reveal. Your people have achieved great things, said, truly remarkable. May I ask what was your most recent invention, your discovery? Thought about it. She searched her memory, going back through centuries of her own life, then reaching into the historical records she had studied as a child. The Dominion had not created anything new in a very long time. Why would they? Everything they needed already existed. We have refined many existing technologies, she said, improved efficiency by small percentages. But nothing new, said. It was not a question. We have no need for new things. We have already achieved perfection. Smiled at that. It was a sad smile, the kind an old teacher might give to a student who had missed an obvious lesson. Felt a flash of anger. How dare this dying creature look at her with pity? Perfection is a dangerous word, said softly. When you believe you have reached it, you stop climbing. And when you stop climbing, you begin to fall. You just might not notice it for a very long time. Dismissed him shortly after that. She completed her observations, filed her report, and recommended that humans be classified as a low-priority species. They were too primitive to be useful and too weak to be threatening. The Dominion could ignore them for a few thousand years and check back later. But as the silver dawn carried her back toward the heart of the Dominion, found herself unable to sleep. She kept thinking about questions, about the technologies she used every day but did not understand, about the last time any had truly invented something new. She thought about what it meant to be perfect, and for the first time in her 400 years of life, she wondered if perfection might be another word for death. Far behind her on the small blue planet called Earth returned to his laboratory. He gathered his students around him and told them about their amazing technology, their immortal bodies, their empty eyes. They have stopped growing, he told them. They have stopped dreaming. They think they have reached the end of the road, but there is no end. There is only the next step and the next and the next. His granddaughter, a young girl named, tugged at his sleeve. Will we be like them someday, grandfather? Knelt down and looked into her bright, curious eyes. No, he said firmly. We will never stop asking questions. We will never stop reaching for more. That is what makes us human. He did not know it then, but he was looking at the future of the galaxy. And the galaxy would never be the same. 50 years passed like a slow breath for. She continued her duties, patrolling the empty edges of Dominion space, filing reports that no one read, attending ceremonies that celebrated nothing. The humans faded from her memory like a half-forgotten dream. They were insignificant. Everyone said so. Then the message came. It arrived on a priority channel, marked urgent by the Dominion Science Council. Read it 3 times before she believed it. The humans had developed a new form of energy production, not an improvement on existing technology, something entirely new, something they had never seen before. 50 years. In 50 years, these short-lived creatures had created something that the Dominion had not produced in 8,000 years. Requested permission to investigate. Her superiors granted it without much interest. They assumed it was a mistake, a misunderstanding of primitive technology, was not so sure. She took the silver dawn back to human space and found it transformed. Where there had been one inhabited planet, there were now dozens. Human ships filled the space lanes, ugly and loud and impossibly busy. They had spread across their corner of the galaxy like fire through dry grass. The human colony of Nu was their largest settlement outside Earth, landed there and stepped out into chaos. The streets were crowded with humans of all ages, rushing from place to place with desperate energy. Buildings rose and fell around her, constructed and demolished and reconstructed in endless cycles. Everyone seemed to be working on something, building something, arguing about something. It was exhausting just to watch. She found Doctor in a research facility on the edge of the city. The woman was old now, nearly 80 years, her hair white and her hands trembling slightly. But her eyes were sharp and bright, just like her grandfather's had been. Commander said with a smile, I remember you from grandfather's stories. He said you seemed sad. Did not know how to respond to that. She had never thought of herself as sad. She simply existed, as all did, in a state of comfortable emptiness. I am here to observe your new energy technology, said stiffly. Of course you are, led her deeper into the facility. Everyone wants to see it. Even species we've never met before are sending representatives. It turns out that when you create something new, the whole galaxy pays attention. The energy device was smaller than expected, a sphere no larger than her head, glowing with soft blue light. Engineers moved around it, taking measurements, making adjustments, arguing in loud voices about things did not understand. "We call it the heart," explained. "It draws energy from the quantum foam itself, unlimited power from the fabric of reality." "That is impossible," said. "The quantum foam is too unstable to harvest." "That's what we thought too." Then Young over there asked a stupid question, pointed at a young man with messy hair and oil stains on his clothes. He asked, "What if we don't try to stabilize it? What if we ride the instability instead?" Watched work. He was taking apart a device, something he had no right to touch, and studying its insides with intense curiosity. As she watched, he reassembled it with small changes, human modifications mixed with ancient engineering. "That is forbidden," said. "Dominion technology is not to be altered." "Why not?" The question was so simple, so childish, that did not know how to answer it. Because it was forbidden. Because it had always been forbidden. Because the Dominion's perfect technology did not need to be changed. But watching test his modified device, and seeing it work 30% better than before, felt her certainties crumbling. "How do you do it?" she asked quietly. "How do you create so much so quickly?" Looked at her with those ancient, knowing eyes. "We die, Commander. That is our secret. We have maybe 100 years if we are lucky. Some of us have far less. So we cannot afford to wait. We cannot afford to be careful. We try things, we fail, we learn, we try again. Every day is precious because every day might be our last." She gestured at the busy engineers around them. "Do you see fear in their eyes? No, you see hunger. Hunger to discover, to create, to leave something behind that will outlast their brief lives. Your people lost that hunger long ago. You have forever, so you do nothing with it. We have only moments, so we burn bright." Stayed on new for a month watching humans work. She saw them fail constantly. Experiments exploded, theories collapsed, projects were abandoned. But they never stopped. Every failure taught them something. Every dead end pushed them toward a new path. A young engineer named Myra showed her project, a new type of ship engine. It had failed 17 times already. Myra was covered in burns from the last explosion. "Why do you continue?" asked. "The pain, the danger, the wasted time, is it worth it?" Myra laughed, showing teeth stained with coffee and exhaustion. "Commander, in 20 years I'll be too old to do this work. In 40 I'll be dead. Every moment I spend not trying is a moment wasted. The pain heals. The danger passes, but regret lasts forever." On her last day, met with one more time. The old woman was tired, her body failing her more each day. She would not live much longer. "Your grandfather was right," admitted. "We have stopped climbing. We thought we reached the top, but there is no top." Took her hand. Her skin was thin and papery, so different from smooth, immortal flesh. "It is not too late for your people, Commander. You can learn to climb again, but you have to choose to start. No one can make that choice for you." Returned to the Dominion and filed her report. She warned that humans were advancing faster than anyone had predicted. She recommended immediate study of their methods, their culture, their strange, burning drive to create. Her superiors thanked her politely and did nothing. 40 years later, when the war began, would remember this moment. She would remember the choice she had asked them to make and their refusal to make it. She would remember words about climbing and falling. And she would understand, finally, that some falls begin so slowly that you do not notice them until you hit the ground. 200 years after his first visit to Earth, the galaxy had changed in ways that no one had predicted. Humanity had spread across 300 worlds. Their ships filled the space lanes. Their traders visited every corner of known space. Their scientists published discoveries that made this ancient knowledge look like children's drawings. and the Dominion was afraid. High Arbiter stood in the great council chamber of Prime, looking down at the holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots marked human colonies. There were so many now that they looked like a disease spreading across healthy flesh. "They must be contained," declared. His voice echoed through the chamber, cold and certain. "We will close our borders to human ships. We will end all trade with their worlds. We will remind them of their place in the natural order." The council agreed without debate. They had always agreed. The Dominion had not faced a real challenge in so long that they had forgotten how to argue, how to doubt, how to question. The restrictions were announced across the galaxy. Humans were banned from Dominion space. Human goods were forbidden. Any species that traded with humans would face punishment. It did not work. Humans simply built new trade routes around Dominion space. They made friends with species that they had ignored for centuries. They developed technologies that did not need Dominion resources. Every wall the Dominion built, humans found a way around, under, or through. Then came the incident at Relay Station 7. A human colony ship, carrying 10,000 settlers to a new world, passed too close to a Dominion outpost. The station commander, following orders to the letter, destroyed the ship without warning. 10,000 humans died in seconds, including 2,000 children. The humans did not respond with fear or submission. They responded with rage. Commander, now a senior officer, was assigned to the suppression fleet. She did not want this assignment. She had spent decades studying humans, respecting them, even admiring them in secret. But she was a soldier of the Dominion, and soldiers followed orders. The first battle took place near the human world of Horizon. The Dominion fleet was vast and beautiful, 1,000 ships of silver and light, carrying weapons that could crack planets open like eggs. The human fleet was smaller, uglier, held together with welded patches and desperate hope. It should have been a slaughter. The Dominion commanders expected it to last minutes. It lasted 3 days. Human ships did not fight like any enemy the Dominion had faced. They did not form neat lines or follow predictable patterns. They scattered and regrouped, attacked and retreated, used every trick and tactic imaginable. When their weapons failed, they improvised new ones. When their ships were damaged, they kept fighting until the last breath left their bodies. Captain Menu of the human destroyer Indomitable showed the galaxy what humans were made of. His ship was crippled in the first hour, engines dead, weapons offline, most of his crew killed. Any sane commander would have surrendered. Instead, Menu ordered his remaining crew to the escape pods. All but 5 refused to leave. Those 5 stayed with their captain as he aimed his broken ship at the Dominion dreadnought leading the fleet. "For our children," Menu said over the open channel, his voice calm and steady. "For everyone who comes after us." The Indomitable struck the dreadnought at full speed. Both ships died together in a ball of fire that could be seen from Horizon's surface. The Dominion won that battle, but they paid a terrible price. For every human ship destroyed, a Dominion vessel was damaged or crippled. The clean, quick victory they had expected became a bloody mess that shocked them to their core. Watched the battle recordings in her quarters, playing Menu's final charge over and over. She could not understand it. He had known he would die. His crew had known they would die. They did it anyway. What kind of species chose death so willingly? What kind of madness drove them to sacrifice everything for people they would never meet? She found the answer in a human book that she had kept hidden for decades. It was called The History of Human Wars, and it was full of stories like Menu's. Soldiers who threw themselves on explosives to save their friends. Parents who died protecting children who were not their own. Ordinary people who chose death over surrender over and over throughout all of human history. Humans did not fight because they thought they would win. They fought because some things were worth dying for: freedom, family, future. These words had no real meaning in the Dominion. They had lived so long in safety that they had forgotten why anyone would choose danger. The war stretched on. More battles, more death. The Dominion's ancient war machines, unchanged, faced human weapons that evolved with every fight. Tactics that worked once never worked twice. The humans learned from every defeat and came back stronger. Other species began to notice. The Dominion's client races, who had served obediently for thousands of years, started to whisper among themselves. If humans could stand against the masters, maybe they could too. Saw the cracks forming in everything she had believed. The perfect Dominion was not so perfect. The invincible fleet was not invincible. The eternal order was coming to an end. And somewhere deep in her heart, in a place she had thought was dead, something began to grow. It felt like hope, though she did not recognize it at first. Hope that maybe, somehow, the galaxy could become something better than it was. She just did not know yet what she was willing to sacrifice to make it happen. The war had lasted 50 years. For humans, this was more than 2 generations. Children who had been born on the first day of the war were now grandparents themselves, watching their own march off to fight. For the 50 years was nothing, a brief moment, a minor inconvenience. But in that brief moment, their empire had begun to crumble. The Dominion's factories could not keep up with the demand for new ships and weapons. These factories had been built thousands of years ago, designed to maintain existing technology, not to adapt or create. When human weapons changed, the factories kept producing the same old defenses. When human tactics evolved, Dominion commanders kept using the same old strategies. Worse still, they themselves had no desire to fight. They had lived in comfort for so long that the very idea of personal danger seemed absurd. Young refused to join the military. Old demanded that someone else solve the problem. The perfect society was discovering that perfection made for terrible soldiers. Stood in a field hospital on the colony world of, watching wounded being carried in on stretchers. Their faces showed confusion more than pain. They could not understand how this had happened to them. They were supposed to be immortal, untouchable, safe. A human doctor moved among the wounded, treating and human alike. Her name was, and she worked with a calm efficiency that found almost hypnotic. Her hands never stopped moving. Her voice never rose in anger or frustration. "Why do you help them?" asked her. "We are your enemy. We killed millions of your people." Did not stop working. "My brother died in the Battle of Horizon. A Dominion weapon took him apart piece by piece. I watched it happen on a video screen." Then why? Finally looked up. Her eyes were tired but not empty. There was something in them that had seen in human eyes before, something she still could not name. "Because this is who I am," said simply. "I am a doctor. I heal people, all people. If I stop doing that because of hate, then the war has already taken everything from me." That night made her decision. She had served the Dominion for 500 years. She had followed orders without question, trusted in the wisdom of her leaders, believed in the rightness of their cause. But watching care for enemies who would happily kill her, watching humans fight and die for ideals that they had abandoned long ago, could no longer pretend that she was on the right side. She sent a message to the human fleet, using codes that she had stolen from her own ship. She offered them everything: Dominion ship designs, defense codes, the location of supply routes, even the coordinates of Prime itself, the heart of the Dominion that no enemy had ever reached. The human response came from Admiral herself. Was the daughter of refugees who had fled the first attacks. She had lost her parents, her home, her entire childhood to this war. She had every reason to hate the. But her message was not hateful, it was simple and direct. If you are telling the truth, you will save millions of lives. If you are lying, you will destroy us. I choose to believe you. Come to us, Commander, let us end this war together. Fled that night. She disabled the tracking systems on her ship, jumped to human space, and surrendered herself to the first human patrol she found. Within hours, she was standing before Admiral, giving her everything she knew. The information was better than anyone had hoped. With help, the humans could strike at the heart of the Dominion itself. But High Arbiter had a response of his own. In the deepest vaults of Prime, sealed away for 10,000 years, lay the Void Engine. It was a weapon of absolute destruction, capable of erasing entire star systems from existence. The who had built it had prayed it would never be used. They had believed that no threat would ever be great enough to justify such horror. Believed differently. He announced his intention to the Council. Some objected. Many more stayed silent. A few quietly fled, seeking shelter in distant corners of the galaxy, but no one stopped him. Learned of the Void Engine from intercepted communications. She brought the news to Admiral with a heavy heart. If he activates it, billions will die, said. Not just humans, every species within range. It does not discriminate. Was quiet for a long moment. She was 60 years old, haired, and carrying the weight of decades of war on her shoulders, but her voice was steady when she spoke. Then we must stop him. We attack Prime, now before he can power up the weapon. You do not have enough ships. The casualties will be catastrophic. Smiled sadly. I know, but if we don't try, everyone dies anyway. At least this way we have a chance. She called her captains together and told them the plan. None of them argued. None of them fled. They understood what was being asked of them, and they accepted it. Watched them prepare for battle, humans saying goodbye to loved ones, writing final letters, holding each other close in the darkness before the storm. She saw a young captain named kissing his daughter's picture before tucking it into his uniform. Are you not afraid? Asked him. Looked at her with clear, steady eyes. Of course I am afraid. I am terrified, but fear is not a reason to stop. Fear is just a feeling. What matters is what you do despite it. The fleet launched the next morning. 3,000 ships carrying 500,000 humans, flying toward the most heavily defended world in the galaxy, knowing that most of them would never come back. Went with them. She had betrayed her people, abandoned her oaths, thrown away 500 years of service. She was no longer Dominion. She was something new, something that had no name yet, something that burned with a fire she had forgotten she could feel. The battle for Prime was about to begin. The Battle of Prime began at dawn local time. 3,000 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, facing a wall of Dominion defenses that had been built over 10,000 years. Orbital platforms, minefields, the largest fleet that had ever assembled, and at the center of it all, the ancient capital world, home to 90 billion who had never known war. Admiral stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Morning, and watched the enemy formations appear on her screens. Her tactical officers reported the odds, less than 1 in 10. Her communications officers reported the crew's status, ready. All ships, said, her voice carrying across the fleet, this is it. Everything we have fought for, everything we have lost, comes down to this moment. Some of us will not see tomorrow, but those who survive will tell our story, make it a story worth telling. The human fleet surged forward. The first wave was cut apart in minutes. Dominion weapons, ancient but powerful, tore through human ships like paper. 60% of the leading attack group was destroyed before they even reached the first defense line. Bodies floated in the void, human and alike, turning slowly in the light of distant stars. But the humans kept coming. They adapted, just as they always did. Small ships darted through gaps in the defensive fire, drawing attention away from the larger vessels. Crippled cruisers rammed into orbital platforms, their crews staying aboard to guide them true. Pilots ejected from burning fighters and used their emergency suits to plant explosives on enemy hulls. Captain led his carrier, the Sunrise, through a wall of fire that killed half his crew in the first pass. His ship was falling apart around him, systems failing one by one, but he kept pushing forward. The void engine's control spire rose ahead of him, a needle of black metal reaching toward the sky. "All hands abandon ship," ordered. "That's not a suggestion." His remaining crew refused. 37 men and women, most of them wounded, stayed at their posts as aimed his dying ship at the spire. "For everyone who comes after," said, the same words Captain Menu had spoken 50 years before. The sunrise struck the control spire at full speed. The explosion could be seen from orbit, a flower of fire blooming against the darkness. The spire cracked, shuddered, and began to fall. The void engine's automatic activation sequence stopped. It would have to be triggered manually now. Admiral seized the moment. "All ground forces deploy. Get me boots on that planet." Dropships fell from the surviving carriers, punching through the atmosphere in streaks of fire. Human soldiers hit the ground running, fighting their way through streets that had never known battle. The defenders, confused and frightened, fell back toward the Capitol building where High Arbiter waited with his final weapon. Went with the ground forces. She knew the city, knew its secret passages and hidden ways. She led a small team through tunnels that had not been used in 3,000 years, moving toward the void engine's manual control chamber. They found there alone. The High Arbiter stood before a console of lights and switches, his hand resting on the activation lever. He was old, even by standards, his face lined with centuries of absolute authority. He looked at with disappointment rather than anger. "Traitor," he said softly, "you have doomed us all." "I have doomed nothing," replied. "I have opened a door. What walks through it is up to us." "They are insects, brief and primitive. They will destroy everything we have built." "No, they will build something better, something alive. Something that grows and changes and makes mistakes and learns from them. That is what we have forgotten. That is what we lost." His hand tightened on the lever. "I would rather see the galaxy burn than watch it fall into their hands." "I know," said. "That is why you have to be stopped." She moved faster than she had ever moved in her long life. Centuries of combat training, buried under layers of comfortable routine, came flooding back. She crossed the distance between them in a heartbeat, her hand closing around his wrist before he could pull the lever. They struggled, ancient enemies locked together in a fight for the future of everything. Was stronger than he looked, driven by desperation and pride, but had something he did not. She had hope. She tore the lever from the console and the void engine's core began to overload. There was no way to stop it now. The explosion would destroy the control chamber, everyone in it, and nothing else. The weapon would die with its master. Understood. His eyes widened with horror, then acceptance, then something that might have been relief. "You could have lived forever," he whispered. "I could have existed forever," corrected him. "That is not the same thing." The explosion was almost gentle. A flash of light, a wave of heat, and then nothing. And vanished together, two children of a dying empire making room for what would come next. Outside, the battle ended. The Dominion forces, leaderless and lost, surrendered in waves. Human soldiers accepted their surrender with tired dignity, treating prisoners with kindness that confused the more than cruelty would have. Admiral received the official surrender 3 days later. She stood in the great council chamber of Prime, surrounded by broken columns and shattered glass, and accepted the final document from an official whose hands would not stop shaking. "The war is over," she announced to the galaxy. "Not because we have conquered the Dominion, but because the Dominion has chosen to stop fighting. We do not seek revenge. We do not want slaves. We want partners. We want to build a future together, all of us, every species in the galaxy." She was 67 years old. She would not live to see the peace she had won, but her children would, and their children, and all the generations yet to come. In the ruins of the capital city, a young named watched human reconstruction crews working in the rubble. They moved with constant energy, laughing and arguing and building things that collapsed and building them again. They would all die, new, in what seemed like moments to her eternal eyes. Yet somehow, knowing that death awaited them, they still built, they still hoped, they still dreamed. "Teach me," said to a human engineer named. He looked at her with surprise, then smiled. He pulled a tool from his belt and handed it to her. "Where do you want to start?" he asked. 1,000 years later, the galaxy was a different place. The now mortal by choice worked alongside humans and 100 other species, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. They still remembered their fallen empire, not with shame but with gratitude, for it had taught them what they had lost and what they could become. And on every world, in every language, a simple truth was spoken. In the end, it was not human weapons that defeated the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known. It was human hope.